Hello and welcome to Intertextual Experience, where we're super excited to spark life into the show with our electric and not power hungry at all, Kaleb Wentzel-Fisher. How are you doing today, Caleb?
Hey, Ryan, I'm doing very, very well. Super excited to be here.
That's awesome. And I just looking at my introduction, I forgot to mention number, but you are our 35th guest, so it's a good number for us t
Nice round
today
number.
as well. So yeah, I'm beyond excited that we're here. And just a couple things before we kind of dive into it. I've got so many thoughts, and I actually have way more introductory thoughts than normal as well. But not even in a disclaimer, but you and we have been able to meet before because we played your game Power Vacuum online together, and that was just a really fun time. That's the way that I learned. Technically, I played like a really poorly played asynchronous game previously, which and then through that, and then through reading some rules and chatting with you, the first actual play, obviously not live in person, but I think was able to capture some of the things that the game is meant to capture. And
For sure.
yeah, that was awesome. And yeah, it's weird. It's like not I'm not reviewing anything, and it's not like I got a paid copy. Just, but I feel like I have to, shout that out. But it's also just a fun thing. It gives a little bit extra uh, elements for us to talk about and for us to reflect on, which is all good for me. And then another fun thing too is that I just wanted to call out like another connection in that you and the previous guest on the show, Carl Robinson, have been able to connect and chat kind of through this show a little bit, and just the way that the two of you connected with the show was fun through media. You had followed me on Blue Sky, and I saw that you weren't really following many people at the time. I was like, okay, I got to reach out. Like, this is cool. And then Carl shouted out the show on Instagram, and I think I mentioned that, but I connected with him through that as well. And both of you have received a ton of acclaim in your first time designs. You have these really awesome games that are really recent, and I just think it's really neat to be able to see, first time designers making these splashes because, you know, trying, bold designs and just making products that people like quite a bit. I don't know. It's just cool seeing those things happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was strange. I'd never used Twitter before, but when I had heard about Blue Sky and that there was sort of like a budding board game community, I was like, all right, like I'm sort of sick and tired of all of the other social media platforms. Like I'll give this a whirl. And when I signed up on there, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And it was like pretty self-explanatory, and it was like suggesting a few different things. And I came across your profile on there, and I was like, oh, this is a. I was like, oh, okay, this is an interesting podcast. And I was like, oh, wow, look at these guests. You've got, Cole Worley, and you've got Patrick Leader, and a bunch of other folks on there. And yeah, that's when I had followed you. And then when you had messaged me back, and I was like, man, this is like pretty quick. This is an interesting community. Like everybody is like talking and open to talk to each other. And yeah, and then from listening to the podcast, yeah, I was stoked. I was totally hooked right away. And then when I had heard Carl on there, I was totally fascinated. It was a great episode. And from there, yeah, I realized he was in Belgium, and I was like, well, I'm in the same time zone. And I think he had actually liked one of my posts as well. And I was like, why not reach out to him? And then, yeah, a week later we had talked. A week later we were playtesting one of my games, and now we're even talking about a potential co-design on some card games or something. We'll see how where it pans out from here. But it was just super cool to connect through your podcast. So yeah, no, thanks for that for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks to the algorithms randomly, putting my profile out there for you to
Yeah, the
find because
algorithm gods.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was just
for
kind of
sure.
meant to be because yeah, I was like, anytime I'll get a follow and say, oh, that's very awesome. Like I want to, see what these people doing, and it's like, oh. Caleb, designer of Power Vacuum, a game that like just came out, making splashes, getting a shut up and sit down video. I'm like, what? Like, this is awesome. So yeah, no, it was meant to be. The algorithms did their job this time. So
Absolutely.
added one more kind of introductory thing before getting to get into your task before getting to our three-act structure is I was, I was kind of playing around with Power Vacuum last night, showing my wife the box and the components. We haven't played it together yet, the two of us. And I showed her, she's like, "Oh, that's like the brave little toaster." And I was like, what are you talking about? And then so we watched the trailer together, and then I'm looking up more stuff. I'm on the Kickstarter page, and then you mentioned Cole, and it popped up a couple times. But I think the first mentioning of Brave Little Toaster was a quote from Drew Worley on
Yeah.
the Kickstarter page. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, like I mean, I figured kind of thing, and then I think Mal, it was in his like information as well, a mix of the Great Dictator, Death of Stalin, and the Brave Little Toaster.
Totally.
I'm like,
Totally.
okay, like obviously not a coincidence, but it's just so funny. That's the first thing. She's like, oh, it's like the Brave Little,
Braver little toaster.
which I mean, my memory's not the best, but I do not think that I watched that movie when I was a child.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I missed that one too. Like it's in my periphery, like I remember it, but I don't think that I watched that one. That one was less of an influence on Power Vacuum, but
Okay.
it's still there.
It's fair. Based on what I saw from the trailer, I can see maybe some of the anthropomorphic appliances, but that's kind of where the connection seemed to stop,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
influence
totally.
seems to stop. All right. Well, okay, so I have a task for you, and then we'll get into it and we'll see if this works out. So first off, when creating the game or when playing it or at any part of its existence, have you named the characters in the game? Have you given them names ever?
Uh, we have. So me and Mal together, um, I'm not sure if this is the right point to bring this up, but obviously, like a huge influence in this game was the death of Stalin. It's probably the biggest influence, and yeah, I mean, early on we were calling them like the minister. They were all ministers to us because these were the ministers in Stalin's crew that were trying to take over after his death, and so we had like the minister of information, the minister of finance, the general, but we never gave them like specific names, like Larry or Sarah or anything like that. But thought more of them as these sort of different anthropomorphic ministers.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So, okay, and then unless I'm like very off base, we have a radio, a
yes,
blender, a
yep,
phone, a
mhm,
toaster. Just
yes,
mentioned the toaster, and then an iron, correct?
yes.
Okay, that's one I was like, okay, I'm like 99.5% sure we got that iron. I mean, it's got the little steam valve on the top, so
Yeah.
and then obviously the vacuum.
Yes, yes,
Rest
of
rest
course.
in
The
rest in pieces.
rest in pieces.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay, so they all had minister names. For the sake of these little act introductions, what I'm going to do is I kind of have mini scene introductions, not really sluglines. I didn't get super technical saying that it was an interior shot, daytime, or anything like that. But I did set up the scene for each act, so to
Cool.
say, and we are gonna kind of do like Mad Libs-ish. So the names of the appliances will make their way into these little scenes.
Okay.
We do have to name them then.
All right.
If you want to have them be like minister or something, it might. change it a little bit, but if you just want to give them names, and they don't have to be generic names, they can be extremely outlandish. It's up to you.
Sure, sure. Yeah, either way. We
Or
could just
could
try it.
they could be like puns. They could be
Yeah,
puns.
true,
Yeah.
true, true.
Okay. So where do you want to start? Is there one that has come to mind first?
Mm, yeah. Well, let's start with the toaster. He's sort of like the most prominent. Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we thinking for the name of the toaster?
Um, oh man, I am terrible with puns. I have to be honest. I hope this doesn't ruin this idea of an intro. I mean,
Oh
for
no,
me,
it's nothing's
he
ruined.
he was always the general, and he represents the suit of violence, which is
Mhm.
also the Trump suit, which is a whole nother conversation about talking about trick taking games and our current state of things as
Yeah.
well. But let's call him General Burns a lot.
General Burns. How about yeah, General Burns a lot. All right, I'm good with it. Yeah, I did also in my slew of like 80 introductory thoughts was going to say that yeah, you created a game that's not relevant at all. It's not topical. It's just like the most fantastical out there.
Absolutely right.
Pasted on nonsense, right?
Oh man.
Oh man. All
Uh,
right. Do you have, how about let's go to phone. I'm just kind of like working my way up.
oh man. The phone. So well, they're a little bit more. You can sort of see like the sweat. I don't know what
Yep.
you call those in drawing world. Like Mal really
I
brought
know.
that to sort of nervous looking,
Yep.
and it sort of looks kind of it reminds me of a little bit of a pig
Mm,
sometimes.
yep.
Um, uh, oh yeah. What's a good name for him? Um, mm, uh, man, this put,
We'll
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna
in
say,
inspiration.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I
Right,
was gonna
right.
say maybe I should grab my box. What do we call him? Um, let's call him Minister Dingaling.
I like that. Okay, so phone is ding-a-ling. These little Mad Libs are gonna
I haven't done a Mad Lib in so long. I'm so curious as how this is gonna
Wow.
come out now.
It's literally just the names are gonna be like swapped in. I'm technically gonna
Okay.
have you finish the first one too, but we'll get there
Oh
when we do.
wow.
All right,
I'm
well
sure.
we got
I'm
two
sure
down and
Mal is gonna kill me after this. He's gonna be like, Minister Dingaling, Caleb, really? Like,
be like, all right, hey, can we change that? It's gonna be all redacted. It's gonna be like bleep bleep
yeah,
bleep.
totally.
Okay.
Um,
Blender.
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 Um, so this one is a little bit interesting because she was added like a little bit later in the game as we needed four suits but a fifth suit. And this was always sort of like the gorilla suit, like the sort of like resistance. Man, I really wish I was better at puns. I'm sure somebody out there listening is like, "Oh yeah, why don't you call it a blah blah blah?" Like as blend. Yeah. So the blender. What would he? Oh,
I would say I could
man.
help you.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you
but I'm
tag in?
just oh no. I'm saying I could. I'm just gonna blame my morning brain for not being able to.
um.
Take a look. I'll look at the back. We got
Let's see. Let's. I was about to say blends a lot, and then when we have burns a lot and
burns.
blends a lot.
Burns.
No, no. Blendy. Let's just go with
Blendy.
Blendy.
Blendy. I like Blendy. Yeah, the only thing I was thinking, yeah, I had nothing. Just trying to think like what
Let's
what
go
do
with Captain Blendy. No.
Captain Captain And then we have iron, vacuum, and then vacuum in the name, or at least in the rules, or the way that the game is structured, is referred to as supreme appliance. So
Yes.
we can let's how about this? We'll give ourselves a break. We'll
Cool. Thank you.
vacuum
I
supreme.
mean, it's funny. This is like a little side note, is that in the very first prototype of this game that I had put together, I mean, Mal had given me the sort of theme of this game when we were working on it together. But my original cards just had like the most basic outline drawing of appliances. So like they're almost like icons. So they were yeah, the least like any type of character or anything. So whenever I was playing very, very early on, I never really thought of them as, I was thinking of them more as like a power hungry appliance that
Hmm.
like, the blender needs a little bit more juice than oh, juice. There we go. Why don't we call the blender that?
Yeah,
Just Captain
Captain
Juicy
Cap
or
Cap Captain Juice.
Captain Juice. It's a way better one. Somebody out there's like, duh. I mean, uh,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's a kind of like a fun note on, prototyping as well, and then also just a fun note too on all the life that Malachi's art brings to this, and obviously everybody else who worked on the 3D rendering, and yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, 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 absolutely.
Okay, well, we got Supreme Appliance, so that's fair. So we're just gonna iron and radio.
Iron and radio. So the iron is the if I believe Mal's gonna kill me if I get this wrong too, is the the finance guy. And he's sort of shifty in a suit.
Mhm.
Uh mm, let's see here. God, I really wish I was better at puns. Minister Full Press. People out there are like, really? This guy came up with this game?
Yeah, the only thing, yeah, I don't know. That one, if you were able to somehow like blend like tux and tax, obviously it's not a tux, but I think,
Oh yeah, true, true.
I don't know, they have like a very similar. I don't know. We'll keep full press for now. I don't know when iron doesn't pop up till the second one, so we can see. So we just have radio, and then I'm gonna ask you actual questions. I promise.
Okay, okay. Well, the radio. What could we call him? Oh, I wish we had better names for these.
I think
Uh,
I mean, it's going to pop up one time. Their name is going
yeah,
to pop up once, and it's going to be that much better for it.
cool, cool. Um, uh, Colonel Static.
Oh,
Um,
I like, you know what? That's perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that's your best one. Okay. Oof. All right. So we are going to then take those names, and I will give you the first the first one. I just have to insert the name. I'm copying it, and I'm kind of
Okay.
like pasting it. And I think it's going to be pretty obvious what the topic of conversation is going to be. But I am also going to ask you to finish it. So I'm going to set up the scene, and then I'll hand it off to you for a second. But all right. A young General Burns lot sits on the floor of a typical Midwestern bedroom, tooling with a high 8 video camera stolen from their parents, this time shooting a scene of blank.
Shooting a scene of in their parents' bedroom in a, is that
So, yeah, a young General Burns lot is in their own
own bedroom.
Midwest
Okay.
using the camera stolen
Okay.
from.
Stolen from their parents.
Yes.
Uh, let's say shooting a scene uh the reenactment of the Battle for Berlin with plastic miniature uh, army men.
Perfect. Plastic miniature. All right. That's great. So, canonically, it's not going to make sense because right now that scene is you being young General Burnslot and your young passion in film, but later on you're going to take the place of a different character. So,
Okay.
nonetheless, this is going to be about your past with film making and I think there have been some mentioned obvious ties between the inspiration Death of Stalin into this, which is going to kind of come into the next section a little bit more as well. And I think interestingly too, I don't know a ton about Mal, but Mal has a background in filmmaking as
Mhm.
well. And then just, I mean, like both of you seem to have created in different spaces, and that's kind of your passion. And I think I have very limited talent in limited spaces. So like, when people are doing stuff all over the board, I think that's really neat. But I just think the connections are fun. I think, the fact that uh, Malachi's, well, I'm not sure if last game, but roll camera. There's just like a ton of
Mhm.
connections between film and Keen Bean and your connection with Mal as well. But yeah, so this is about filmmaking. And I guess the first question then is then how does your background in filmmaking influence your board game design or other projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah, absolutely. One funny thing I just feel like mentioning because it might be the right point about how Mal has a background in filmmaking, and with his last game, Roll Camera. Me and Mal actually met. This is like another very weird story. We met. There was an audio school here in Berlin, like a private university, and they were starting a film program, and we were one of the first two teachers of this film
Hmm.
program. And that's actually where we met. And we taught there. I was there for about a year. I think he was there for three or 4 years. And we had parted ways. But when we met, the other weird thing was that I had moved from Albuquerque to Berlin, and he grew up in Albuquerque, and he
Oh.
had left the year before I went to Albuquerque. And so we were like, this is really weird. And after leaving the film school, it was like 3, 4 years later that I ran into him at Essen. And I was like, what are you doing? What? I was like, this guy? And he was like, well, I kind of got into board games. I wanted to make my webcomic into a board. And I was like, okay, this is really strange. And then, yeah, we started hanging out and we ended up working on games together. But like our paths have had this very weird um, sort of back and forth. But so I won't go too
Oh,
tangential
you,
there.
you
But
that's the point of the show. Get it
okay.
tangentially fun. That's absolutely wild. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny.
yeah. No, it was just, I mean, it was so strange. It was like here we are, like with so many similar interests, yet like our paths were sort of like merging at one point and then diverging, and then, but yeah, I think we both like, I mean, the amount of times that we reference films while we're playing board games, like, we both grew up on tons of the same films, like UHF. Do you know this film? But it's Weird Al made a movie once upon a time. And it's the only movie he ever made, except for I think he helped produce this newer one that came out with Daniel Radcliffe or whatever. But he made a movie in I think in the late '80s, early '90s. It also had a Kramer from Seinfeld, like a young Kramer in it. A bunch of other people as well, and it was an amazing film. But we would find ourselves like referencing these films, and I'd be like, I know that movie. Like, how do you know him? He's like, I've seen this movie a million times, and I was like, Mal, how? Like, very strange the similarities. But yeah, getting back to the question. So how does filmmaking sort of influence the way that I design board games? Did I get it right? I'm already forgetting the question,
Yeah,
but
yeah. You just kind
yeah.
of how is that background? How is that passion? How is kind of, yeah, I guess the multi-modality of your creation and history influence your board game design and maybe anything else that you're working on then too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that one big influence has been it's just in the medium itself. Like I grew up making films since I was in probably like fourth grade. It was very much this. I stole a camera from my dad, a high eight or even beta VHS, one of these, and me and my friend Devin back in Ames, Iowa, where I grew up, we were always making films, and like anytime that we had an assignment in school, we'd be like, "Could we make a film instead?" And really just like I'd been making films forever, and because I have five brothers and sisters, we also played lots and lots and lots of board games. So like my history with both of them is very very layered. And yeah, as I grew up, I got also interested into music. I went to audio engineering school in Minneapolis. That was a very short stint, but always sort of got drawn back to film. And in my 20s, I started making little short films. This is when the DSLR cameras came out, and it was like, oh wow, you can actually like use different lenses and um, yeah, and uh, I also started working in the film industry in New Mexico. This is when the big boom hit there. They were one of the first states to offer these tax incentives, and so like Breaking Bad was being shot there. A couple of like the early Marvel movies, and there's still a massive film scene. Netflix has a studio there, and I got to sort of see this whole world and the inner workings. And if being on a film set is it's very cool, but it's also like I don't know, it's very strange, and you realize the amount of people and the things that like go into making a film is so grand. Um, that never really stopped me. I mean, I still was when I ended up moving to Berlin, I was making music videos and short films, and I told myself, like as a filmmaker, I want to make a feature film before I'm 30. That was like this like weird goal. I don't know why I had like an age thing attached to it, but I made a very sort of personal, amazing and terrible at the same time feature film along with my brother. I learned so much. But one of the things that was so hard, and this is me trying to get to the point of the question, was that filmmaking, uh, it's the actual making of it is so much fun. You're using props and you're being creative and trying to figure out like ways to shoot things and new techniques and you're sort of collaborating with this group. But the medium itself, it has this point at which like you have to finish it and then you have to show it to everyone. And and I remember it during editing, I was just going back and forth and tearing my hair out. And I was like, this part sucks. Like the making of the film is amazing, but people don't realize there's the making of the film. And then you have like the post production of like putting the thing together, wondering if people are getting your ideas right. And you're just like, man, this is really, really hard. And, yeah, and then you kind of have this one shot, right? Like you finish the film. You can do test screenings, but that's not really a thing like that I was doing as an indie filmmaker for, our budget was about 15 grand for a feature film. Um, but when I had started getting into board games, I just realized I was like, well, wait a minute, like this is such a fantastic medium. Like not only can I create a narrative, an entire world, characters, interactions, to have tension. Um, but I can do this at my own pace. I can more or less do this on my own. When I need to bring it to others, or obviously people play games together, and so like you have to find that portion of it. But you can play test it and you can get this feedback and then you can just bring it right back and start to like let it evolve even more. And yeah, and so there was something that just drew me to that where I had loved making films, but like man, this really and it'll let me use all of those talents too because you have like you make videos about the board game like an instructional video and that can be creative in itself. And then ultimately the medium itself still to this day, I think about this a lot where I'm like, okay, what are the things that I really love? Like I love music, I love films, I love comic books, I love art, and I really, really love board games. And I find that board games, they're they're this thing that you get to make that people will have on their shelf, but they'll also take down, they'll touch it, they'll play with it, they'll interact with other human beings around it, and they'll do this again and again and again and again. And with a film, yeah, I love movies. I've rewatched many, many movies many times, but you kind of sit in silence and then maybe you talk about it afterward. Um, music, yeah, you listen to it again and again, but it's unless you're at a concert, it's a very sort of solo type situation, or much more these days, I think, with people listening on headphones and everything. But and same with books. So, you read a book, you might read it a second time, but board games, man, it's a completely different medium that just I don't know. I love it so much. It's and so anyway, filmmaking has definitely influenced that in the way that I create games. I love to think about interaction and narrative and uh yeah, just being able to walk away from an experience, that you're like, oh, what was this story? What just happened? And so I don't know. I found it very natural to move from films to board games, and I don't know. And ultimately, it's a little bit more sustainable for me. It's something that I see myself doing a lot more than maybe one day I'll go back and make another feature film. But man, that first one was tough.
Did you finish it up by 30? Was it done?
Oh, I have a great story for that too. So I premiered the film in Zagreb in Croatia, which is very funny. They have a film festival there that takes place every year, the Fantastic Fest Zagreb, where it's sort of sci-fi, horror, other stuff. But we had actually shot some scenes in the movie because I had gone through the former Balkans and filmed these different statues and monuments. But the guy at the film festival said that we had actually caught like a little bit of his poster and it was in the film itself from one of the previous like 2 years before. Anyway, so we went. It premiered on July 31st, or sorry, July 3rd. My birthday is on July 4th. I was 30. It premiered at like 10 p.m. and the screening ended like about 20 minutes before my birthday, where I turned 31. So I had finished the film within like a 20-minute, like from, shooting to post-production to actual release. People had seen it, it was out, and I had 20 minutes left, and then I
Okay.
turned 31.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Hey,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I don't know. I think I had a similar goal, not in filmmaking, but in a novel that was probably like early mid 20s being crafted, and it's not done. So,
Oh. Well,
but
one of these days, one of
yeah,
these
one of
days.
these days. But I don't know, we'll see. I think it's going to be kind of like one of those boyhood things where, you get the 10-year gap.
Yeah, 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 totally, totally.
Very intentional with the
Mhm.
experimentalism there. All right. Anyway, that's cool. Yeah, I like that story and just the breakdown of the mediums and I think from your one game, the kind of having the games work as a storytelling sandbox, it's super apparent in what's going on in Power Vacuum. And yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, with just like with your background and having these ideas being the one that are swirling, I think that vision is very apparent, and that's awesome. You mentioned sound, and that's kind of well, the high eight camera that the little scene introduction had was stolen from your site. And then there was another quote where you mentioned that you have a passion for sound and storytelling, and I think the storytelling came out in the last kind of question and response. But so I don't even know how set of a question I have for this, but how much have you thought about your interest in, sound design and music when it comes to games? Is that something that in like a different type of project you would want to incorporate more? I think the cool thing about board games too is I think they have like, different like haptic and sensory experiences where like, even yeah, I talked about this with Carl a bit, but even, like kind of like the clicking and clacking of pieces and things can add to it. But obviously that's not like music. It's just like a sensory thing. But like yeah, so that's the question, I guess, is, have you thought about that background and an interest in music and sound design like being incorporated
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean to touch on the last episode that was something I really loved about it, and I absolutely wholeheartedly agree that having certain pieces that I played a Othello a lot as a kid. Do you know Othello? Like this
No,
like
I haven't played that, but here, I can
okay.
look it up now.
It's like it's got like a felt grid. The board is really it's a weird thing. We had one that had a felt grid and then this little plastic like half circle thing that would go over these tiles, and that's how you'd put it away. And then but the sound of that box whenever I opened it and the little clacking of and it was a similar sort of like acrylic little tiles. There's something I don't know that really just brings me back that sound and that feeling. And I recently got kelp, and it does so much for a game. When we were making Power Vacuum, when we had finally sort of arrived at using this power cord to go between the different ministers. An earlier version of the game was actually the very first was a deck of cards that you would flip over, and it would
Mhm.
say whoever plays the lowest card would get to would move it to this character or to this character, and so the mechanism changed a bit, but in finding that the perfect piece for that, we were like, oh man, it would be so great to have like a little magnet that kind of just like tucks on there and it's like, and there's something very gratifying about that sound and that haptic. Yeah. So absolutely like incorporating that element into board games, I think is really important. I think it elevates the experience a lot. Um, one other thing I think about a lot, which I think everybody goes through this. You have like your sort of rotation of board game groups. I mean, maybe not everybody, but I've for the last like 10 years, I've had a couple game groups come and go, and there are some of my favorite ones would always really get into it, and we would actually like we would put on a soundtrack. Have you ever done like soundtracks for games?
Well, it's funny because I've typically will only do stuff like that when I'm playing games by myself, like just like solo
Yeah.
experiences. And then we had a group, so it was four of us total, where we were playing the Fellowship of the Ring trick taking like cooperative game. And
Mhm.
then, I mean, we were about like three-quarters of the way through our playtime. We're like, why didn't we put Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
soundtrack on
totally,
in the
right?
background? And then we're just like, oh shit. But yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's
do by myself a bit. Like when I do exploration games, I'll put on the Planet or like whatever, like the like those like hardcore kind of like naturey sounds and stuff.
totally.
But
Totally. You mentioned on the last podcast too that you had been playing Final Girl. I just got that,
oh,
and
nice.
there's a couple of great Spotify lists that you put on. And it's like a mix of John Carpenter and but they like that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is I think that there is a real space for, and this is something that I really want to do in the future. And I had sort of planned for my first game. That it never really evolved into to anything. But I kind of dream of actually making soundtracks like that are specifically for the board games, and I'd like to even incorporate it in a way that maybe somehow works with the game. I'm not too big on having these like I don't know, like I'm not really into the app assisted games. I love the idea that like if the power goes out someday that I have this closet full of board games that will work and that I can play without any sort of assistance. But um but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a dream of like releasing like a vinyl, like along with a board game and creating some original music that you can play along with the game. Yeah, I mean, with the one game group that I had that was really, really great, I think our WhatsApp group was Demos Downers. I don't know if you ever play Terraforming Mars. It's like one of the big cards. It's like this huge comment, and it's called the Demos Down, and so everybody called the group Demos Downers. But we would always put on music and sort of try to find some sort of theme or something, and sometimes just something in the background. But I have thought a lot about creating. Yeah, for me, it just sort of heightens the experience. I've had another game group where I have a great friend who's just like cannot deal with it. He's like, no music whatsoever. I need to concentrate. This is not working for me. I'm here to play board games, and um, that's sort of a different story. So,
That
um,
is. Well,
but
yeah, that's
yeah.
funny too because I one of my recent episodes was with Candace Harris, and we talked about music and board games, and Candace had way, I mean, so many more examples, so much more prep for that conversation than me. And it's like, oh, that is a good example. And then I was kind of on the lookout for stuff afterwards, and I received an update from the Earthborn Rangers
Oh yeah.
Game Found project, and this was at the end of March, and it said that the official soundtrack for Earthborn Rangers is now up. So I think it's cool that other people are kind of like doing that and thinking about that because, yeah, I think there's so many elements of the board game experience that you can, really tailor. Like, so that one friend that doesn't want it at all, it's like, okay, they're not going to have the music, but yeah, it looks like this one had an orchestral um studio set up.
Oh really?
Well, here, sorry, soundtrack was I don't want to read like the whole Earthbound Rangers.
No, but I mean this is exactly
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is
Yeah.
like to bring I mean I don't know it's world building, you know, and the more you can kind of bring folks in, it's I don't know, I think it's really really cool. Oh wow, this has got a lot of tracks. 68 tracks, is this right?
I don't know. I just clicked on the update, but
Oh wow. Oh no, they have like stereo mix and then binaural
oh,
mix.
okay.
But that's actually pretty cool doing a binaural mix. Do you know binaural audio? This is
No, this is out of
oh
my
man.
out of my
I could
expertise.
totally nerd out on this too. Where binaural audio is where you can create 3D sound for regular headphones
Hmm.
because we all hear in 3D with two sort of receptors, right? Two ears, and there is a way to process audio so that when you put on normal headphones, it sounds like it's in 3D.
Hmm.
And it doesn't sound so good. Well, it sounds okay on a stereo system, but it doesn't quite translate. But when you put on headphones, you should look up. There's a classic someone getting a haircut, and so when you put on these headphones, it feels and sounds like you're getting the haircut.
Okay.
It's
Here.
a classic YouTube video, binaural haircut. I think it was one of like the early recordings in the binaural world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm I no, people cannot see us. This is an audio-based podcast, but I'm not shedding these locks anytime soon, so I'll have to live
Live,
vicariously through
yeah,
the
yeah. Try
binaural
try the
haircut.
YouTube. Yeah, you can be like, is the time, you know?
No, no, just
No.
and if I do, it's gonna come like here. It's not gonna go all the
Yeah.
way to the top. Oh, perfect. Okay, so I've kind of got one more question for the movie related stuff, and I mean it's going to keep tying in over and over, and I think that's the neat part about this talk too. But uh, okay, I don't kind of not really like a weird question, but it's not necessarily tied to these other ones. So this doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite movie, but what's like a movie that you wish you made? And it doesn't have to be like your favorite. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I want to make this movie because it made, billions of dollars or whatever. But maybe that's your answer. I don't know. But
Oh man.
like that you, I guess, feel maybe hits on your kind of filmography and design and writing aesthetics or vision maybe that you're like, yeah, this could have been not could have been, but like you know what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I always, it's not that I hate the question of like, what's your favorite movie? I just don't think I could ever say. I think that maybe a way to look at it is like, what movie would have loved to have been there? You know, like as
Hmm.
you said, to make it yourself, rather maybe than make it myself, but just to
Yeah.
sort of see the thing.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of folks out there might be like, oh, that's a bit of a cop out. But Space Odyssey 2001, I
Mm.
mean, I think was like it, that movie really got me when I was younger and really made me want to make films and think about how films were made and just thinking about the lengths that Kubrick went to with Arthur C. Clarke and them talking to NASA and to like there's footage of them like walking through NASA to like get ideas and write stuff down and these just ginormous sets that they were building to do like the running scene and the big wheel the orbital thing on the space station and I mean he was really pioneering like a lot of sort of in camera techniques all the way down to like the classic have you seen Space
Oh
Odyssey
yeah, it's
yeah
you're saying that, and it's probably been a good 14 years since I've seen it. And I'm like, okay, I gotta watch it again.
yeah totally yeah it's one that I revisit like every once in a while it's probably been like I don't know 6 or 7 years and then I don't know, but then I also I love films like Werner Herzog is a big inspiration for me just because I felt like I mean these days the more that I learned about Werner Herzog I was like man he's kind of a jerk. but but at the same time, he's this guy that like, he's always saying, "Oh, just break all of the rules and just do your own thing." And I'm like, "Well, you were able to do that back in the day. Like, I don't know how much this applies today, but I think, he was doing a lot of stuff that was very out there and very weird and getting funding for it, and it was very like he was like, "This is my vision." Whether it's it's just watching like a chicken run around in circles and some of these earlier films and um, but yeah, I love Werner Herzog films and just the fact that his stuff sort of spans quite wide. And then yeah, what are some of my other ones? I mean, I watch so many movies now that it's when I get these questions, it's just so hard to pin down. Um, but yeah, I would say Space Odyssey would have been one to be there to see that happen, in that crazy studio and yeah.
Yeah, I I like the direction you went, and I think that yeah, when you mention it, I'm thinking about the movie. First off, I yeah, that works. That's perfect. You had the right answer there. Okay, well, we're going to move on to like Act Two, and this movie or play or whatever it is that we're creating. Well, I'll try to rein it in at some point.
Okay.
So again, I'm always like I'm never afraid of things going too long. I'm just like, okay, people have lives though. Like I don't want to. But okay, this one I just have to grab the names of the two characters and put them
Yeah.
into the like little Mad Lib thing. All right. So I think we're all set, and here we are. So a supreme appliance vacuum lies dead on the floor of a pristine new department store, cord cut, insides currently being emptied and cleaned in front of the nervous yet curious Captain Juice and Minister Fullpress, watching out of the corner of their eyes. And others. I only had room for the three characters there. Anyway, so yeah, this one is probably just inherently going to be a little bit shorter, but a I have a few quotes and I have two questions connected to those few uh, quotes then as well, and I think this kind of ties to yeah, it's like bridging the gap a little bit, but it's been brought up a few times that kind of the story or some of the world and world building of Power Vacuum was inspired by the movie The Death of Stalin, and I finally just recently saw that. So it had been mentioned in reviews, and you told me when we were playing, like, oh, well, I have many blind spots in especially movies these days. I haven't watched as
Yeah.
much as I used to, but I'm really glad that I watched that one. It Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really good at like expanding on my thoughts too much, but it kind of definitely captures that dark humor and scariness and sadness all at the same time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it did a nice job. And we mentioned before, not topical, not nothing. It's just a movie.
Yeah.
So and it's funny because these quotes were kind of hitting me all like relatively close to each other in the film, but I'll give you a quote and then kind of how it led to the question, and then the question exists for you. So there was this one part where they're all kind of like debating and manipulating each other's words, and the one I, I'm not good with names, especially in that movie. Keeping track of the names was tough.
Yeah. 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 Sure. Sure.
So these quotes are from the movie, unattributed to which character, but one of them he says, "This is just bleeping wordplay." Was the quote? It's like the
Yeah.
swear, so we're bleeped out. But that got me thinking about that idea of yeah, I think I'm not table talk and and in this context of your game, kind of like negotiation and shifting alliances and everything like that. So I'm just curious, if you have, I mean, I'm sure you played and play tested this game in like so many different scenarios. If there's a story or example that sticks out to you where somebody really got away with kind of like tricking somebody into doing something terribly, stupid that helped out somebody or something like that, I guess.
Oh man, I mean there are probably too many to count with this game. Um but yeah, I mean the quote was this is just bleeping wordplay, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Um yeah, no, I mean it's funny how I think that making this game and how you play the game was I don't know if it was as intentional as I thought it was, maybe, but like, so I don't have like a specific
Yeah.
instance, but I do have a good sort of side note to that is that the way that I play board games, and maybe you have some friends that do this as well. Like everybody kind of has like the different sort of friend group and how people play games. You have somebody who's like the silent thinker, and you have somebody who's like, um, provoking everybody. And me, like and my younger brother gives me crap about this. Mal gives me crap about it. Is that like I'm the person that's talking the whole time and being like, you should do this, you should do that, you should think about this. And I'll even get to the point where like I'm talking about what I think I should be doing. And I had thought about this the other day, how I think it really stems from that like how I play games. Sometimes like I look at all the possible scenarios and my brain really starts to branch out, and I'm like I love getting into like more complicated games, and I'm like, well, if you did this, this would happen, and if you did that, that would happen. And sometimes I just I'll be saying this out loud, and some people are like, why, like, Caleb, just be quiet, you know um but I think that that's kind of how I play board games, is that I also, when I see somebody miss something, I sometimes like want to like I want the full challenge of a board game. I don't want like an easy out where like I'll even hint to somebody, be like, there is a better move. You should really do that. And for some people it annoys the crap out of them, and fair enough, because that's, it's like, just play the game and be quiet. But I when I play with Mal, like, I think this is why the game works so well, is that we both do that. We are very much psychological players when it comes to board games, where I mean, for me, how so much of my strategy in very many board games is the psych out, and like trying to talk people into doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or and it's got maybe a little too far sometimes, even where like the friendship was like on a little rocky road afterward, but like they were mostly smoothed out. And so, but yeah, that definitely, that style of play is very much how I play board games. And so that's very apparent in Power Vacuum, because you're always trying to get somebody to give you a little bit more power or shift the power over there, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
So here, just kind of getting this straight, because we played it together too, and obviously your knowledge of the game was more than me and who we were playing with, and yeah, I think yeah we I mean it was we had a good chat. We were just kind of talking about like a million other stuff, and then like the game talk would slip in, and and it'd be like, oh yeah, if I do and like I think you did kind of talk through all the different potential like outcomes, and neither of us won that game, so
yeah, true, true.
so that happened,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Oh,
I I think yeah, so I think like if you're coming from an angle where it's like advice, and some of it is, you wanting like somebody to make a better move, and I think in this, you if you're like constantly like putting ideas on the table, it's just kind of over like inundation of data.
yeah, yeah.
It allows you to trick. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just even hinting a little, like, if you gave the TV a little more power, this might happen on the next turn. Or if you gave the toaster over there is looking a little slim, I think you could turn it around, and that's when the game really starts to come to life, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think I definitely agree with that, and I think it's a pretty good segue to my next quote and question is, yeah, the only words I wrote down from this one, oh, this was after, this was a pretty funny scene. They were all here. Actually, I'm going to type in the characters because I know who this was. I can actually see them saying it. And this was when uh, uh, Beria, they were all getting into it at Stalin's funeral. Um, it was when
Was this when
Khrushchev.
they're
Oh,
standing in the line and they're like trying to
oh no,
talk to each other?
that
No.
was really funny. This was after. So this was after like Khrushchev had the trains opened up, so all the people were came, and a whole bunch of them got shot, and then they're trying to like pin it on Beria.
Yeah.
And so they're all getting angry, and Barry's like, I got papers on all of you, and it's crumpling up all the crumpling up all that stuff, and then just leaves, and then kind of takes a deep breath. He's like, okay, we'll whatever reconvene, and then the actual quote is nominate some scapegoats, and then
Oh
Malen
my gosh.
and then Jeffrey Tambor's character, Malenkov, he's like, "See, this is why we're such good friends. We can get angry at each other." And
Yeah, totally.
that scene was so ridiculous. It was so funny.
Oh man.
So the quote then, the only thing that was actually probably words spoken by those characters was the three words, nominate some scapegoats, and I think that ties in pretty well. So obviously, Power Vacuum is not a it's just everybody's playing for themselves. There's the possibility to have the shifting alliances if you have, the same agendas or similar agendas, or even if you have the same agenda as somebody else and it's going to help them more than it can help you. Like, yeah, there's just all these kind of very tenuous elements. But it's not. So there's negotiation, but it's not like a strictly negotiation game, and it's not like strictly a where do we have it? Like a social deduction game or anything, you might
Hmm.
be trying to figure out what people are going for at different times. So I guess, are there just kind of generally, what are some other games in, either the negotiation, social deduction, or shifting alliance space that you like and play then too?
Mm. Mm. Well, one that comes to mind, have you played any of the PAX series games?
Um, I've played a little bit of Premiere Second Edition,
Hmm.
primarily online. I have it and have messed around with it by myself mostly.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then I yeah.
that's the one I've been thinking about in terms of these sort of shifting alliances. Is It's a game that I really really love, this idea that you have these multiple outcomes, that you're who you're playing as isn't really like one of the characters on the board, right? So you have in PAX Premier Second Edition, there's the Afghans, the Russians, and the English, right?
Mhm.
And you sort of pick a side early on, but the whole idea of the game is that you're either winning alone with one faction, or if you are allied with another player on the same faction, then it's whoever has the most influence within that faction. And yeah, there's something about games like this with these sort of like multiple win conditions, this idea that like kind of what you're trying to do in the game all of a sudden just shifts. And it's like, wait, am I playing the same game now, or am I playing a different game? And I really, I find that game does that very, very, very well. Another thing that is cool about it is that the that there's a catch-up mechanism. I think that in PAX Premier that you can still be last, but with the points doubled at the very, very
Mm.
end, you can kind of like swing ahead and still win. And it's super thematic. It feels like you're sort of, like politically stirring things up, and like you might join a faction just to like kind of tear it down a little bit to then switch factions again. And so I think that game does it really, really well. I think about uh sort of like hidden agenda, one game. And I mean, this is like one of the big ones, and I'm sure people talk about all the game all the time. I actually haven't played it in probably over a year or two, but I do have it, is Nemesis.
Mm.
um and I've been wanting to sort of dive. What I love that Nemesis does is that you have a hidden objective, right? And when you play Nemesis, you start out cooperative, and it feels very much like a cooperative game. It's like, hey, like I don't want to venture into that room. There might be aliens over there, or like like we got to get, like, you need to discover some stuff, because like we're all on the same team here, and you're not going to survive if you split up. Like in Nemesis, you kind of want to stick together. But as the game sort of develops and like things start to become clear, and you're like, okay, maybe I actually have a chance at completing this objective, but it's gonna, I have to kill the second player and steal these eggs from the alien nest or whatever. Um, I don't know. I like games like that have this sort of um, these shifting outcomes, and just like, you can kind of play it this way, but then you can kind of play it that way. And oh man, I'm blanking now. I was thinking of a third one to kind of bring it together. Um, oh man, something that I just played recently. Uh, yeah. Oh, I'm totally blanking.
No,
I talked about
no.
Nemesis too long, but
No, I think the types of, obviously the experience is not the same. I mean, they're, all radically different games, but I think just the kind of the core and the heart of what it is that you're hitting at is there for all of them in different
Mhm.
capacities. I think that's really neat. And here's one I haven't played, so I'm just curious if you have, because it seems like it could fit in this really well. Uh, Kind of especially within that the space setting too. Is, have you played Station Fall?
That was the one that I was about to say. That's okay. This is perfect because I literally like it clicked before you said it, and I was like, I wonder if he's going to say Station Fall. So, yes, Station Fall is fantastic. I have luckily, I mean, Station Fall is nearly impossible to bring to the table, right? It's like an hour and a half teach, and then folks are like, what do I do again? Like I can do it. I can do anything. And you're like, I mean, I had one group just completely fall apart, but I do have one other game group that I started, and this is like I don't show up there very often anymore. They have a group every Tuesday, but my buddy Chris, he's like, anytime, feel free to bring Station Fall. We love that game, and we played like a 7-player game. And I've played 3, 5, 6, 7 players. I played it like a good amount, and I've always wanted to replicate that game. I mean, it is so good. So for people listening that don't know it, like Station Fall, you've got 12 characters on a space station. I think you use 12 in a bigger, maybe more in a bigger game. And the station is about to explode in 15 minutes, and each round is 1 minute, something like this. Might get some numbers wrong, but um, essentially, like you have a character that is your objective. You are not this character, and then you have a second one which like at a certain point you can swap out if the first one gets screwed or something early in the game, but you can control every single person on the board uh, to complete the objective that you have on your card. And it's so hard for many people to wrap their head around like how you play this way, where it's like, oh wait, but I just want to move the character that I have. And you're like, no, that's not the point. The point is to move all of the other characters. And a weird story because I really got into I researched it. I forget the designer's name. Eklund. It's
Matt.
it's
I
like
think it's Matt.
yeah, it's the son, the
Yeah.
dad who's like he made a bunch of other board games. He may have made a PAX game.
Yeah, I
But
think I think it's Matt Eklund, and I think he
yeah,
made the PAX Transhumanity as well,
yeah,
if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken.
But did you know that the game was actually not called Station Fall, but I think it was called Castle Fall to begin
Hmm.
with. So it was actually about a bunch of peasants rushing a castle, and you had a group of of royalty trying to figure out what the heck to do and how to escape the castle. And there's like a designer diary about how they figured out that a space station actually makes way more sense for how you can exit and enter from like the top and the bottom because of zero G, that it fit the mechanics much better. Um but yeah, it's a fantastic game. I I wish more people could to get over the hump because it's actually not very complicated. What's your experience with it? Why did you bring it up?
Oh
Have you
no,
played
no.
or?
I sorry. I if I didn't say I haven't played it, and I was just it just
Ah,
like you saying those games made and like me, I've heard about it like 80 times now, and I'm like, okay, when do I get to play it? When do I get to play
oh man. Yeah,
it?
I mean, with a huge group, it takes a while to get to your turnaround. I think like 4 or 5 players is fantastic. But it's just such a silly game. But when you really figure out how to play it, you're like, this is unlike so many other board games. But yeah, Station Fall is, I mean, you've got like manipulation. You're like, yeah, bring the space monkey over here, or like the lab rat should really control that guy, and nobody knows who anybody else is, and you have all these competing agendas, and so that was definitely a an influence for Power Vacuum as well. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, believe it or not, it is in my owned and unplayed collection, so I'll see. Yeah, speaking of game groups, I'm not sure if I have quite the group for it, but I've heard that that kind of medium count, that 4 or 5 is what's best, and here on BGG that seems to be the consensus. So
Mm.
maybe it'll make it more attainable, getting my dreams of playing Station Fall and reporting back to you. But no,
Cool.
oh, very neat. So I'll just kind of drop the final quote. And honestly, again, like I said, this question, I just wrote down a bunch of quotes. Like my notes for this one, well, they're always all over the place, but this was on paper when I was writing it. I'm like, ooh, I have a really good question that'll tie to this one. and it's lost in the ether. But it could, but maybe I asked it, maybe I will ask it. I honestly don't know. But I love the scene where I think it was in regards to Stalin's son saying he wanted something. I don't know if it was when he wanted to give the speech and then
Yeah.
or whatever, but then Malenkov, Jeffrey Tambor's character again, he starts off by saying no problem and then shifts to no
Problem.
problem.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, and it just goes to show, like, I'm sorry, you probably have a question for, I'll
No,
let you
no, that's
finish.
like
Yeah.
I
That's,
lost the question. This is the quote with the lost question. So you can go on with it how you want.
God. Yeah. I mean, it's, it just showcases like how insane that situation was and how politicians in general will just say the whatever is the most appropriate at the appropriate time and will just BS everyone and will switch sides and be slippery and yeah, I mean, really, he was like, yeah. The scene is essentially I watched it last night. I rewatched it. I have to confess to prep for this podcast, but I'm trying to remember. So there is this when they're trying to vote Beria like out of the committee right before. I mean, spoiler alert, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
most people know
I'm
what happens.
This was around that time, but I thought for some reason I thought that the quote came when when he was giving Stalin's son permission to do something,
Oh,
and he
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And maybe it's to give the speech in front of everybody. Yes, that's what you had said. And yeah, and so like and because he is the like according to their rules and regulations, he was the one that was stepping up to then rule the country in this interim period, right? And so everybody looks to him and he's like, "No problem." And then everybody looks at him again and they're like, hey, and he, we can't do this on with video, but like gives him the evil eye, and then he's like, no, no, no problem. And again, yeah, it just it showcases the full insanity of being a politician and how some of these folks are just completely manipulated. And yeah, and it's sad, it's unfortunate, it's comical in certain you know circumstances. But it's yeah, I mean, and that's really like a lot of what we capture in Power Vacuum is that, from turn to turn, you might be siding up with one player or siding up with another player and just totally flip your agenda, and yeah, and so I don't know. I feel like we captured that feeling pretty well. The movie does it. I mean, I really suggest everybody watch this film. It's quite dark. It's not going to be for everybody. I mean, it's very very funny, but it is also very dark. And I don't know. There's a lot of what's happening today going on in this film. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the kind of like flip-flopping between, laughing and just my face. Again, can't do this on camera, just being like completely like, wait, what? It's constant. And it's yeah, one of those things that it's like so ludicrous, but not not far-fetched, not having not happened in history over and over again, that it's just like,
Yep.
geez Louise.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and it's strange. It's just in these particular moments that someone saw an opportunity, said the right thing at the right time, and was able to sway someone, and it just changes history completely. And yeah, it is totally wild. But but yeah, I highly
Yeah.
suggest everybody
Oh,
watch that film. Yeah.
yeah, especially with like how infrequently I watch movies these days in general. Like it's enough. Like I probably watch enough movies, but I typically don't do a ton of rewatching. But
Mm.
I mean, after having recently seen that, I could easily see myself watching that, even within a few months,
Yeah.
which is just funny.
And
And
characters are just so good. I mean, you have Steve Buscemi as Khrushchev, and I just love too that like all of the accents. He's like, whatever, just don't even attempt a Russian accent. So you have mainly British accents, and then a few American accents, and it really just adds to the ridiculousness of the entire thing. Yeah, for sure.
and I'm glad that Power Vacuum was able to distill a lot of that experience while harming no real life appliances in the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh.
Okay, well, I'm kind of here. I'll hit us with Act Three, and which was kind of get us to the resolution before some typical wrap up thoughts in there too. And yeah, there's not a ton of questions here, and they're also they're kind of all over the place. But nonetheless, let's see if I can get the names in the right spot. I have to copy and paste two more into
Final
our
Mad Lib.
final Mad Lib. Oh yeah, this is where you get to take place of a different character, and yeah, so yeah, again, canonically, it's not making any sense. Anyway, Act Three. Colonel Static sits in their office toiling, not wanting to bash their head against the wall too much in order to not cause a malfunction. A painting of Supreme Appliance Vacuum sits tucked away in a corner, but on display enough in case anyone got suspicious. Then, bursting through the door with the renewed bit of electricity, Master Dingling comes in and says, Colonel Static, I've got Power Vacuum. All right.
Oh man, this is gonna be great.
So earlier on, you did retell the very unique and fun story of you and Malachi's paths crossing over a few times. But I think, that also is going to tie into the creation of the game, Power Vacuum as well. And that was something that, you can explain further, but if I'm not mistaken, just kind of the general outline where you can fill in the gaps is something that uh, Malachi had been working on, and then kind of like you were both working on, and I'll just turn over that
Yeah,
story to you.
sure, sure. Yeah. So when we had met again at Essen, Mal had just put out a game called Itchy Feet, and this was based on his web comic. So Mal, for it's over 10 years, he puts out one comic every Sunday. It's something that he's just always done and gained a pretty big following on Instagram and somebody was like, "Hey, yeah, like what do you do with this? Maybe make some t-shirts or something." And somebody reached out and said you should make a board game. And so he did, and that was his first successful Kickstarter. And that was when we met, was at Essen that year that I think Itchy Feet came out. And then he was working on Roll Camera, and I remember playing some early like pizza box versions of Roll Camera, which were very cool. And I was working on a couple different games. I was really inspired by Tokyo Highway. I was getting into some dexterity games. I had met those guys when I visited Japan, the creators of from Eaton Games, and yeah, and so we were always bouncing ideas back and forth. I was working on a game called Crime Spree, which was sort of like my opus, and I feel like most board game designers will tell you, and most of these blogs will be like, here are the 5 mistakes every beginner board game designer has ever made. Was like, try to make the biggest game possible first, and that's exactly. I mean, like, what's so funny to me is that story is so common that maybe that's the actual way you should become a board game
Yeah.
designer is to try to create a super complicated game, fail at it so that then you can realize, oh, I have to go back to basics. And so maybe that's actually even a better route. Anyway, that happened to me. I was working on this game Crime Spree, which I wanted to be very much have the aesthetic of of old 80s crime movies and a little bit of GTA. And I was like, there isn't really like a great board game out there that just really goes for it in that realm. And I got close to doing I did a Kickstarter. It got very close to funding, but not with a lot of backers. And I was like, I don't really want to have, 800 copies of this game left over to store somewhere. And I was feeling pretty down. And I was like, you know what? Maybe as a designer, it's time to go back to basics. And I was like, I'm going to start with a deck of cards, maybe some dice, and just have these be the tools, and see what I can come up with. And like I said, like growing up, I played lots of games. I played contract rummy with my grandmother. I played cribbage with my folks. So I know a lot of card games, and I started working on a stock market, stock trading game, where you're inflating the prices of different suits and trying to make them go up and down. And it was somewhere in there that so yeah, Mal had come to me around that time. This is while I was still working on Crime Spree, and he was like, "I've got this great idea. I just rewatched Death of Stalin. This has got to be a board game. Um, I think it should be a trick-taking game, and like the different guys, because you're always trying to hide something from somebody, and you're trying to win a certain amount of tricks as power, and there should be some asymmetrical stuff going on." And he had even brought like a small prototype, and I think we had like a regular deck of cards and some weird cutout powers, and the thing fell apart in about 10 minutes. And again, it was one of these like ideas that we had all shelved. Like we have a bunch of these games. Like me and him probably have, I don't know, 10 or 15 or more than this, like games that we try once or twice and they just sort of fall apart. Um, so anyway, this is post Crime Spree. Feeling pretty down about the Kickstarter. I'm working on this game, and I start to play around with this trick taking idea, and it came from the stock market thing of like I wanted shifting amounts, right? Of like, okay, this character or this stock has like a certain amount of value, and then how would you like siphon that off to this character? And ultimately you kind of want to have like an insider idea of like what's going on, or like what your like end goal was, is like, oh, I really want this stock to do well or this stock to crash. And then I just hit me, and I was like, man, maybe this is power vacuum. And I quickly, like I said earlier in the episode, I made some icons, and I had like this little vacuum on its side of like the dead vacuum, and then like a little iron and a little phone. And I put the game together. I called up Mal, and we screenshotted the text, and I was like, it was about 1 year after he had pitched it to me, and I was like, I think I have power vacuum. So we did like a TTS version. He was already living in the south of Germany. Now we both used to live in Berlin, but now he lives in Ravensburg, and then we used to do board game retreats. I went down to visit him, and we ended up climbing this mountain uh, to go to this like little hut that you could stay in, run by these Tibetan folks. It's very cool. It's near the border, the Swiss border, in southern Germany, and we brought a bunch of board games with us, and I brought Power Vacuum, like my prototype. And yeah, and we started playing it, and he was like, "Wow, this actually fits." So you have, competing ministers over like, trying to vie for this new supreme appliance position. You have hidden information. Like everyone has their own agenda, very much like in the film. Like each person was like, "This is exactly what I'm trying to do," and some were a little bit more clueless than others in the movie, of course. Um, so you have a hidden agenda, um, and then you have this hand of cards, and you always have like your hand of cards. Like, what are you able to play, and what are you able to manipulate? Just like in the film of like, well, I've got this like dirt on you, or I've got this on you, um, and that information is always skewed a little bit. And so we thought about this very much when making the game, that like you could see the backs of the suits, but you couldn't see the numbers on the front of them. And that was also very like tied into the theme of like, hey, we really want this idea of we're all sort of a part of the same team to begin with, but like we know what we have on each other, but we each have a hidden agenda, and we have this sort of skewed information. And yeah, and it started to take shape. It's very funny that the core of the game is very much the same. I mean, Power Vacuum from the inception. I mean, I had gone from working 3 to 4 years on this mega opus that totally failed, and I think it was about 6 months. No, it was 8 months from when we thought of it till we did the Kickstarter. And yeah, it just worked. I mean, the last big change happened, but like I had said, when changing the stack of cards to a die, and then to ultimately this power board, which made the whole thing work much better. But the core concept of the trick taking part was already there. And so, yeah, the process was super collaborative. Mal had given me this idea. I had brought it back to him. We would play two-player games over coffee like every morning for those next 3 months. Kind of like fine tuning the game. We started playtesting it with some other people, and then that was fun when he started doing the art. I also would go visit him. We would play some games and come up with ideas for the cards of like the paper shredder shredding into his own head and like barfing out the paper and that was one of my favorites, and the washing machine
Yeah,
laundering his own money
the money
and
laundering one is it's
yeah.
great. I just looked at that one when I was kind of like doing my uh whatever, just like looking at stuff yesterday and brainstorming. Like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah. And yeah, and then the whole package just like and then ultimately the scoring, that was the last thing I'll say about was we really wanted to innovate on we had a scoreboard, like a regular
Mm.
point tracker, and we were like, man, board games, nobody is taking the space of like the point tracking in any like it's a whole thing that's in so many board games. Some of them like Carcassonne, love the game. The score track for that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Like it looks like this weird worm, you know? And it's like, why can't that be cool? And we kicked around so many ideas. One was a pop-up book that had these steps to like a Russian monument, and you would try to be getting up the steps to be the first one to the top, sort of like a Rocky situation. Um, but yeah, we went through all these different things, and it was at Essen that I found a meeple that had three parts to it, like a bottom section, a middle section, and a top section with a little pole in it, so that you could like swap out these sections. And I brought it to Mao, and we looked at each other, and we had the same idea. We were like, okay, we've got to do some sort of stacking something for points, and that's where the statues came from. And so I don't know if other designers are listening to this podcast. I implore you to think about score tracks in a new way, and like let's make scoring cool. You know, like I think that there's a lot of design space there to be explored for sure.
Yeah, I think kind of going full circle to when we were talking early on about just all the things that can alter your experience. And if that's just, I mean, well, in the deluxe components, it's a less small thing. It's a nice big chunky block, which is awesome. But I mean, these are, still relatively small, quote unquote, changes that are going to have like a big effect on your overall experience, and it's going to make sense within the context and the story and some of like the theming within the game then too. So yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think your point of just going for it or thinking outside the box is great. And I just, yeah, kind of, this isn't even necessarily like a question, but I think just the collaborative process that you outlined too. I mentioned how I found Drew's quote on the Kickstarter page, but I was also just, I think, yeah, I mean, absolute, um, as much like kudos or recognition of the overall like presentation and production, and not just in its look, but I think, the rule book is well done, and you know, I've backed my fair share of crowdfunding things, and at this point, I'm trying to back less crowdfunding things and just play more. I think a lot of people fall into that trap, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen my fair share of crowdfunding pages, and I was just, kind of mini scouring the power vacuum one, and I just think that like the way that that was set up, and the way that the game presented itself, and the way that you, Mal, and Keen Bean on the whole like made everything clear. It wasn't, just, a lot of pages are here's game, here are the million components, and then there's this. I don't know, I just think the page told a story. I think everything about like the game is what it wants to be, and it's clear in like every every like step. And I don't know. I thought that was really cool when I was looking over that stuff.
Oh man, I really really appreciate that. Yeah, it's I mean I really have to give it to Mal. Like one of his strengths is absolutely like just really leaning into the full production, like always trying to be like, well, you could actually add this one little more, or like, oh no, it would be great if it had this. I mean, even from roll camera, I don't know if you've ever played, but like the clapper box and the film reel insert, he pushes it quite a bit, and so I have to give him a lot of credit for that. Is that like he's a great director, like in terms of like having a vision for something, and then us working together to bring that whole thing to life. I mean, but a lot of that, like the visual stuff on his side was him, and but it really showed. I also felt the same when I looked at that, and everything from, even we worked on the Kickstarter video, which is pretty hilarious. We shot it in a basement to try to make it look kind of like like a weird old like Russian warehouse or something, and but all of it was super super fun and a total labor of love. But yeah, he put a lot of work into that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I mean, it's like it's not to say that not all games are, I don't know. I think like when you have it be that labor of love, and it's not like that you're making no compromises. Obviously, there have to be compromises. It has to fit into certain size box, X, Y, and Z. But like when you let the vision lead, I think that just comes across and definitely does here. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
okay. Oh, well, hmm. I feel like I got a few more questions, but I also feel like again we're when I mentioned like that 2 hour mark, we're starting to encroach on it. So I've got a silly question. I also remember that when we were chatting, when we were playing the game, we talked about cribbage a lot, and I have no cribbage
Oh yeah.
questions. So
Oh
maybe
no.
maybe it'd be like a future thing, you know?
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
when
Well, I have one for you actually.
ooh,
I'll make it real short. So I was
okay.
at the bookstore yesterday and I've been thinking about cribbage. I was like, I would love to have like a cribbage revolution, just like trick taking has. I mean, I don't think the cribbage is just one game. There's like a million trick taking games.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I was at the bookstore and I found one of these old like instructional like how to play card games. And it's really old. The pages were like real brown and falling apart. And I was like, well, maybe this will be some inspiration. It's got like contract bridge, and then it had cribbage in there, and then it had oh, I'm gonna forget the name of the cribbage, like bidding cribbage. Have
Huh.
you heard of this like weird house rule? So maybe
No.
try it. I haven't tried it yet. For people that aren't familiar, you play with 4 cards. Each player is dealt six. You have your hand, and you have to give up two of those cards to the other player, and they'll get to score their crib at the end of the round. In this version, you can bid on the crib. So I can say, I bid 2 points. And you can be like, well, I bid three. I'll bid four. And you minus those points, and then take the crib. So you can kind of like psych somebody out to get them to take the crib, even though you didn't want it. Or you could take the crib every single time, but you're losing a few points because you're bidding on the crib. Um, I wish I had the book here in front of me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so let's. I just typed that in, and this is Wikipedia. It says auction cribbage. Any player may
Auction
bid
cribbage, yeah.
for the points in the crib after the cards are dealt. Bidding continues in turn until no further bids are offered. The winning bidder then immediately deducts that number of points from their hand. The crib is scored at the usual time, and its points awarded to the winning bidder for that round. If no bid is placed, the dealer retains the crib.
And the other cool thing is that the many people don't know this too, that when you get to score first if the other person has the crib, right? Which sometimes is very, very important for winning the game
Hmm.
because it'll push you over the line. In this version, if you bid for the crib, you get the crib and you get to score first.
Oh,
So, which is kind
okay.
of a spicy rule, but
No, that
yeah.
that is that is very impactful.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, totally. It's
I'm
a weird one. I had never seen it, and I was like, oh, I bet Ryan would like this.
I I would I think I mean I don't know if we mentioned it, but I'd played partnership, so 2v2 cribbage for
Hmm.
the first time and I played hundreds and hundreds of games of cribbage, and this I
Yeah.
kind of like got my first game in earlier this year, 2025, and I liked it. I felt like you know, the playing the runs felt a little more goofy.
Mm.
It's just
With
kind of
four
like
people, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like I mean, I think there becomes the opportunity to play something like make a poor play is very apparent. Like if you're doing something, dumb that's going to hurt you and your team. But I
Yeah.
think there's less space to make, good plays in,
Mm.
as much space as you could because it's not always guaranteed, but
Sure, sure.
it just causes more friction. It's like, why did you do that? That was really
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah. Totally. Totally, totally.
Okay.
Oh
Oh
man.
well. Now I'll look into this, and I think, well, I don't even know. I've tried to pare down the games that I'm thinking about creating, and I'd say that my cribbage one has taken a little bit of a back burner,
Mm.
but I would also say that's still kind of like in my top four of games that have been on my mind. So
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to explore. Like the board itself could be like a different puzzle, other than just scoring points. Like maybe you're going up on different tracks, or I mean, it would be hard to kind of mess with that core loop and take out like the regular deck of cards. I can't imagine like the sort of interaction of like how different cards could play together. But it's also hard to improve on like such a classic
I
too,
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, you making me think of that, or you saying that made me think of like if you had the board and it was kind of like MOBA-ish, and you could have your pegs go like jungling and
Hmm.
trying to
Totally,
defeat
totally.
defeat mini bosses or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, go up these different levels, and you're like, well, okay, I got 3 points here, and I get this like reward because of the cards in my hand, which is like a sword. If you're using different suits, and then you can move that peg up and say, okay, this character is battling this person. And you're like moving through something. I saw a post on Blue Sky too. Somebody had made a weird looking. It looked like a sea, and like you had the pegs were little ships, and so you're like going to different lands and trying to discover different stuff. Somebody else was had some similar ideas, but yeah, it's definitely something to be explored.
Hey, well, maybe much like basically everybody I talk to, when we have our next conversation, we'll see which
Yeah.
uh which lands we have explored in the cribbage
Which
design
world?
space.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with one super random kind of power vacuum related question, and then I'll get to the two wrap up questions. But what is what appliance do you feel got an unfair exclusion from the game Power Vacuum? Which appliance deserves its face on the
Oh,
cover?
oh man, this is tough. I mean, so we went through and we were like, oh, do we have to keep it like to the era? Do we have to like, is this
Hmm.
like pre-digital then? Are we trying to keep and then we were like, but are we really making like a game that is Death of Stalin, or is this and we kind of tried to like branch it out a little bit more. We were like, we want to sort of talk about autocrats and dictators. Like it is not the death of Stalin, but it was inspired by it for sure. But in that, it was really funny. Even the plug, my friend Andy, he's so particular about all of these like different facts. He said the plug on the card, he's like, that's an American plug. The Soviet plug is actually circular, and it's not like with the two. You know, and it pointed this out, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, okay, somebody's gonna find these things." So when selecting appliances, we were like, what should we have in there? I think the TV/radio is sort of like it's kind of like that could be either. I think that was like something
Hmm.
we had talked about.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, uh, but well, one was like the refrigerator, but it was just too big, and we're like, and we wanted. There is one card in there that is the refrigerator is running. There's like
Okay.
a couple
Yeah.
puns. If you look through the
Yep.
cards, you'll see like a refrigerator running. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we went through. All right. So the one that I thought would have been hilarious was the the electric turkey knife.
Oh gosh.
Just because nobody ever had like it's like you see that at the Goodwill or something. You're like, who actually owns an electric turkey knife? I mean, it would be really fun to draw and it would be cool, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
The like
yeah.
you
Oh
plug
yeah,
it and it's like
100%. Yeah, you just
yeah.
yeah.
So I would say like that one for me would have been really really funny to have in the game, but then I think people would be like, what the hell is that, a handsaw or is
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So the conclusion to that question is the ones that made the cut, I mean it makes the most sense, honestly. Like you said, kind of considering
Hmm. Well,
era. Oh,
one funny thing we did learn, uh, we were like, wait a minute, is a phone an appliance? Because you don't plug a phone in.
hmm
If you think back to the old rotary phones,
hmm
they don't have an outlet. You just plug them in the wall. And then this led to this whole little bit of research where, like, well, how the hell does that thing work? Like me and Mal were like, huh. And there's actually like an electrical cable that goes in through the little phone cable, and it is powered
hmm
through the phone cord. But you don't actually plug those into the wall. So that was a minor debate that we had
uh,
of like, is a phone really an appliance if it's not plugged in? And then we're like, well, it is plugged in, like, but that's something
just
I learned. Yeah.
just in a different way. So, verdict,
Yeah.
phone, appliance.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
really good. No, yeah, I don't know. I came up with that question and I couldn't think of anything. But so I guess it brings up, you said, so, okay, I could have gotten it wrong from the beginning. So is it like meant to be a hybrid of the TV and the radio? Is it meant to be ambiguous or is it meant to be one or the other more so?
No,
I could,
yeah, I think in the end we pushed it towards the radio.
okay.
Um yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I almost feel like it's like I should look at that again and yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's more radio just for that era.
hmm
Um yeah.
Okay.
Um but yeah.
Fair, fair. Okay. Well, nonetheless, we are on to the two wrap-up questions, and well, we talked a lot about um, different movies and games and all sorts of stuff. But my penultimate question is always, what's something that's been on your mind? Any text, so any other game or movie or show or song or anything, book that you've been consuming and have been thinking about.
Yeah. That's a great question. I was recently inspired by I can't remember when you and Cole were talking about inspirations for arcs. He had mentioned that he was like reading. You guys were. I remember you talking about sci-fi books, right? There was like Hyperion in there, maybe, and or maybe no. You guys were talking about
We were mostly talking about uh,
what was the book? I'm gonna totally
Gravity's
blank it.
Gravity's Rainbow
Gravity's
was like
Rainbow.
the
That's what it
core
was.
of our
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Um, but he had mentioned, I think it was then maybe on a different podcast, but I just finished a memory called Empire, and the sequel, which is a Desolation called Peace, which was super fantastic, and I see just how much inspiration he took from that. And a part of me was like, oh man, I mean, he used a lot from this book, but it made me want to play the game even more. And I think that I walked away from playing a campaign of that game and feeling just like, man, this experience just really told a story to where like I felt like I could have written a sci-fi opera when I walked away about what happened in the board game. And I want that feeling. And so I'm working on this new book or sorry, this new game about wizards like running around in a little isometric dungeon. And I returned to a book that I had read as a kid, but had totally forgotten about. And I don't know if you know it, by Ursula K. Le Guin,
Hmm.
A Wizard of Earthsea.
I I honestly I feel like somebody has brought that up in this question at some point in
Oh,
the
really?
30 something other ones, but nonetheless, yeah, I've heard of it and I have not read it, but
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. It's it's sort of framed as like a young adult novel, but it's a little bit deeper than that. I think that she's an incredible author. It's one of her early works, if not earliest. And so anyway, I've been reading that, getting really inspired. I just picked up the second book. Well, actually, the last like four books because it comes in this giant chunk. It's the Tombs of Adawan, I think, is the second one, and yeah, it's just been a real pleasure to like go back and read something kind of like simple and fun and trying to pick out those little moments in the book that really feel, I don't know, inspiring or thematic and find ways to sort of implement those into games and to sort of tell a story. And it's also inspired me to make some music too, going back to our previous conversation. So I would love to make some music for this new game as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. And well, you you must have been prepped because my final question is always just kind of asking about things that people should be looking out for from you. And well, first off, Power Vacuum, unless I'm mistaken, I think was kind of a 2025 release in terms of delivery and fulfillment was the word that I was looking for there.
Yeah.
And available for purchase. So if you don't have a copy, find one. New, the hotness, uh, awesome, kind of like thing that you just did. And I'm always like asking, it's like, okay, what next? But you've mentioned wizarding a bit as well. But what other things should people be looking out for from you? Like, or things that you want to point people in the direction of?
Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. Well, I'm excited to co-design. This conversation with Carl has been really cool and about the opportunity there. I other people listening, like definitely reach out to me. This is gonna kind of be one of my new things. Is I have a few of my own games, like this wizarding game, and I've got a ping pong two-player game. Berlin has like 3,000 public ping pong
Hmm.
tables. And so I've been inspired to like, I was like, how could I do like a lane battler out of like ping pong maybe? Which could be kind of fun. So I've got a couple like, I mean, I've always had a million. I have another idea about a territory control game, but your germs in a bathroom.
Okay.
And that's another one that I would like to work on. But I would really love to collaborate. I've got a few people in mind, but I'm always open um, and I'm also exciting. I'm very close to finishing a pilot for a podcast as well, but much more not an interview driven podcast, more sort of in the realm of 99% Invisible or Radiolab or something about play, just play in general. And so I have a pilot about the origins of the D20 and how that came from. I mean, very, very, very old, but the mass production of them started as a scientific object, a scientific instrument in Japan for generating random numbers for
Oh,
random sampling was the D20. Yeah. So I found a guy that I interviewed and so I'm working on that too. So maybe keep an eye out for that in the near future. There'll be a pilot and then maybe some more episodes depending on the time that I have.
that's no, that's fantastic. And yeah, usually with the show notes, I'll definitely link Power Vacuum on the Keen Bean page. I'll
Yep.
link your Blue Sky. We talked about Blue Sky and maybe design page. But not if, well, when that pilot comes out, I can always go back and I can even, relink that. That will take like 2 seconds to add a link to the show notes. So, and if people in the future are listening and the show is then posted, I'm extremely looking forward to that as well. That's exciting.
Yeah. Very cool. No, yeah, I really appreciate it too. Yeah. And yeah, always anybody listening, like feel free to reach out. I love talking to people about games, about music, about film. And you can also find me at calebwf.com.
Mm.
There's a bunch of my weird stuff that I've made on there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I've been on your website a bunch, so I'll link that too.
cool, cool.
Well, thank you for talking to me. You said you like talking about games and other forms of art, and I couldn't be more appreciative that you took all this time to chat with me about it. So thank you.
Yeah, it was great to be on. Thanks a bunch, Ryan.
Intertextual Experience, the most power-hungry podcast about board games and any other text that they connect to. Thank you so much for spending your time here. Your support through listening to this podcast means everything to the show's success. If you enjoyed the project, consider giving us a rating or review and sharing it with any other people in your life you would feel would like it as well. Any further support, such as sending an email to say hey, following some of the show's social media accounts, or contributing any monetary support to help pay for some necessary subscriptions would be greatly appreciated. All of that information can be found in the show notes. Until next time, keep playing, watching, reading, listening, experiencing.